Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have a very special guest, all the way from the sunny state of Florida. I have Mr. Andrew Compton in the house with me today. Andrew, thank you for taking the time to jam with me. I know this is going to be a lot of fun. We've been looking forward to having this conversation.
Oh, I'm totally looking forward to it.
Hey, Andrew, for everyone out there that's watching and listening right now and kind of don't know who you are, kind of how you got started in the business, I thought it'd be fun to kick off today's podcast with a little origin story. So, Andrew, how did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Well, I sold a company and, I was looking for something else to do. And I saw there's a local company in Tampa that did a reverse merger and they went public and they were basically providing online leads to small dealerships. And the company was LotVantage and they did basically Craigslist marketing at the time. So I thought, wow, I owned a small business. I knew about how valuable online leads were going to be back in the day. I thought, man, you know what? I could sell that.
Sure.
Plus, I wanted equity. I wasn't necessarily looking for a job. So I wanted to get an equity position in the company. So I went to the president and I said, hey, listen, here's the deal, man. I already got my money. I don't need yours, but I like what you guys are doing, right? Why don't you let me work for you for 30 days? I think I can sell your product.
That's cool.
And, if I don't sell anything, then, we shake hand and part friends and we walk away. So I think the first month I put on 12 dealers. The next month I put on 30. The first 100 days we had 100. He was like, hey man, you think you can build a sales team and do this? I was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's how I got into car business.
That's how you got into the business. This is one of those businesses. Once you're in it, man. Like it's hard to get. It's once it's in your blood. It's hard to go and do anything else.
You can't go anywhere else.
You really can't, right?
I
can't. It's just not the same. It's really difficult to go do anything else. Hey, I wanted to get into kind of our main topic today because boy, we had an opportunity to jam before we started recording today, and I love this topic. It's a big topic for me, and it's really what we're talking about today is kind of that vendor dealer relation, where we've seen it go wrong, where we've seen it go right, how to make it better. So this is going to be a fun thing, but I thought we kind of start off as for you, like what is a good vendor to dealer relationship look like, kind of in your opinion?
Well, I mean, there's three. I call them three categories of those relationships, right? The first category is a vampire, and that relationship is someone is just taking from the other party. Like the only value that the dealer has to the vendor is to pay their bill monthly. Mm-hmm, and the vendor is going to do everything they can to suck the life out of the dealer, and it's a one-way street. Unfortunately, those relationships exist. There's no synergies there. The second type of relationship is the neutral relationship. It's an equitable relationship. The dealer provides a service, or the vendor provides a service, and the dealer pays a monthly invoice. At least, 1 + 1 = 2 in that relationship. Yeah. And at best, the majority of companies are having equitable relationships. And then the very rare relationship is when you can find a partnership. And 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore. There's synergy involved. And both parties are helping each other grow.
And I think that's like the best place to be, right? I mean, I see this happen a lot, and I've had the opportunity to have relationships like that where we were able to really work together and lean off of each other. They were open with us of what their operational goals were. We were open with them on kind of what our operational goals are, and there's just that synergy, that togetherness where I see really, really cool things happen. And, but I find a lot of dealerships struggle to get to that place. And, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I think sometimes it's because I feel with vendors, we play like this proverbial game of cards. Like, you have your cards, I have my cards. We're playing this game of poker back and forth, and that's definitely not a place to go. But I'm curious for you, like, how do we, as dealers and vendors, how do we get to that place of synergy where we're able to actually partner and work side by side?
Yeah, right. listen, if you ask anyone, what type of relationship do you want? No one's going to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm looking for a vampire, right? Like everyone's
Exactly.
going to say, hey, I want a partner. I'm looking for synergies. Okay. But some vendors and even some dealers aren't capable of either of those. So how do you get there? Well, I mean, on the vendor side, you work with the right dealers. Not every dealer is equal. I mean, I like to say that, and it sounds brutal, but there's a reason small dealers stay small. They have high turnover. Senior management is burning people up. They change their pay plans on people. So, like those small dealerships that will just grind you. Those are the guys that, the vendors that are attracted to those guys are the vampires, because they can close those accounts.
I hear what you're saying about vampires. It's I've met a handful of vampires kind of in my career. So I'm actually kind of curious for you. What is the worst thing you've seen a vendor do?
Wow, you put me on the spot. The worst, I mean, as far as the worst thing as a dealer perspective.
Sure.
So I was working with a client. They had a fairly big dealer group on their platform. And the dealer group was pissed. They were canceling the account.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked me, hey, can you talk to management? We need to save this account. And I was like, yeah, okay. All right. What's happened here? Where are we at? Give me a little lay of the land. Turns out the old GM put a company credit card on file, right?
Yeah.
This company was invoicing them for a year and they weren't even using the service.
Ah, jeez. Yep. That's a rough one. You know what's funny though is I've actually seen that happen more often than not. I've done many operation audits where I've looked at, kind of like what's that vendor? I call it the vendor stew. You have a little bit of this sprinkled in, you have a little bit of that sprinkled in, and who and how are you actually using any of these widgets or these techs or these vendors? And I'm always still amazed to find out how many like duplications of systems or softwares or widgets that they're paying for. And exactly to your point, I've found a handful where the dealer thought they canceled that $5.99 a month, whatever it was, and 2 years later they're still paying for the bloody thing.
So I'm like, yeah. So here's the crazy part, right? Imagine this, right? The only reason the dealer figured it out is because his AMX expired, and they called him to get the updated number.
No way. The vendor was so disconnected that the accounting department actually reached out to ask for a new credit card, even though they had been providing services for over a year. Wow, man. That's
and they're like, who are you and what are we paying for?
I'll have to say,
I was like, we're probably not saving this account.
No, they haven't used it for a year. But look, it's unfortunate, but it does happen. And, I will say if there's any silver lining right now to what's going on with the pandemic is a lot of dealers have done a good job of really auditing themselves. And, not just from like auditing their staff and their labor expenses and their payroll expenses and really auditing, their vendor expenses. And I think maybe
there's no doubt about that. They're
trying to figure out what vendors are actually worth it.
There's no doubt.
So then that kind of goes into my next question. It's like how do we, I guess, how do we identify a good vendor versus a bad vendor? Like how do you know that there's just no way this is ever going to become a partnership? And like, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of work to that. I mean, what certifications does the dealer have? What type of integrations does the vendor have with the dealer that they're going to partner with? Like one of the things, they're CDK certified dealers. Those are CDK certified vendors. Those vendors spent real money to get the certification,
for sure.
Right? And then there's workarounds where like vendors can, I don't need this interface. I can get the data from this source. And, they're not willing to spend $30,000, $40,000 a year to get that access. So like making sure that they've already partnered with some of the bigger players, that tells you they're willing to invest in their security.
No, for sure. You know what I find is, and me being a dealer and on that side of the table and sitting at that desk, I was able to kind of quickly identify, the difference between a good vendor and someone that I could actually see where we're going to create and develop out a partnership was in the questions that they asked, right? I think too often, I find a lot of vendors, you'll sign up for a product and then that's it. They take your credit card and they provide you the product and that's pretty much the extent of it, right? And maybe they check in every once in a while for retention reasons, but they never, they're check-ins for retention, not necessarily growth. So, I found some of the best vendors I ever worked with would actually ask me operationally or from a marketing perspective, what was my goals? And, they would go back and show me how their product or service could actually help me meet my goals. I'm sure you've probably seen this too, but I'm curious for yourself, like for your,
well, look at the business case. Look at the business case for the vendor. Okay. Mm-hmm. The vendors, they're going to hire someone to do some account management. It's usually a junior level person. Hopefully they have a college degree, right? But they're coming into this role without a lot of business experience.
Yep,
and now they're supporting very sophisticated business operations. So I was working with a client one time and they were trying to figure out why the GM wasn't calling them back, right? And I was like, you're worried about a login and you've already left 3 voicemails for this GM? Your product's $600 a month. Like, how many voicemails do you think he needs to figure out the login? He's never going to log into your system. So I'm just like, do you understand this guy's running a multi-million-dollar operation? You've left him 3 voicemails today. You've got 10 competitors. He's going to cancel right now. You've just ruined it for yourself.
Ain't that the truth?
They don't understand.
Well, you know what it is?
I understand my product. They didn't return my phone call. I'll call 3 times.
I think what it is a lot of vendors don't necessarily understand that the value to a dealer is not necessarily what you provide, but it is how you exceed the expectation is necessarily the value, right? I mean,
100%.
look, if you're a website
100%.
provider, like, I mean, think about this. Like, how many thousands of website providers are out there? I mean, there's thousands of them, So, okay, cool. You've met my expectations.
They've got options.
That's right. They have options. You've met my expectations as a vendor. You provided me a website. But what's that cherry on the top? The glue that's going to, really bring me that additional value. And for me, it's always kind of been my consulting. It's like I'll come in and I'll consult, I'll work with you even, on something that we're not even helping with, just because of my background and my experience. But I feel like vendors got to find that. How do you think a vendor can find, that gray space where they can meet a customer's expectations?
I mean, my friend, a good friend of mine, Jay Smithwick, he owns a company called 360 Booth. They've got the booth that does the
very cool stuff,
rotation on the photos.
Yep, I've talked to Jason
very
before.
Cool product, right? But he says your give a damn can't be broken. Like, you really just have to it has to come down to that. Do you give a damn about your customers or not?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then they'll just pay. At best, they're going to pay their invoice every month and you're going to give them something and it's going to be equitable, right? But if your give a damn's broken, it's like, it's going to be so bad for everyone. I mean, that's how it is. And unfortunately, I don't know if the give a damn's broken or management didn't do a good job training the boots on the ground support and salespeople of exactly the business case that the dealers live with every day.
Oh, for sure. Like it is.
Like,
I like that give a damn. Like,
if you understood how much they value their time, like their time is
exactly.
These guys are making 250 plus a year. All right. Their operation is bigger than yours.
Yeah. So it's like,
you cannot waste this guy's time.
100%. So time is definitely one. what are some of the additional value a vendor can bring to a dealer? And kind of your thoughts.
Listen, there's, the vendors have so much access to data because they've got a big data set, right?
That's a good point.
The dealers know how to sell cars. You can't teach a dealer how to sell cars. But if you look at, even inside one vendor's dealer base, right? There's, it's the 80-20 rule. 20% are going to be killing it. And then there's going to be everyone that's, kind of using it. They can do a lot better job of showing them the difference of the guys that are killing it versus the guys that are just, surviving.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, the data that as vendors we do have, all right, can bring great insight and perspective to a dealership, and that's a great way where I think a vendor can actually provide some additional value to them. But that's a pretty big commitment, right? Like to sit down and really digest all of the data points that we have, and then put something together to put out there. I think it says a lot as a vendor. Now, I've met some good vendors. I've met some bad vendors. I'll tell you a quick story. I actually had to throw a vendor out of my dealership one time. And what I mean throw, I mean physically grab him by his jacket, lift him up, and just like
you put hands on.
Oh yeah, no, seriously, that's how bad it was getting. Like, I mean, it was 5 or 7 times of telling him to leave my office, and he wasn't going to physically leave my office, and it was because I didn't understand his product. And that's what it was. It got bad. I don't know. Maybe he was drinking before he showed up to my dealership or something like that. But it's hilarious. It's because he's still in the business.
I mean, that's a common thought process. If the dealers don't adopt my product, or I can't sell the dealers and they don't get it, they don't understand it, they don't look in the mirror, but here's what I know about dealers. Hey, Jason, if me and you're a dealer, if me and you are walking down the street and there's $100 bill on the ground, I might get physically hurt while you push me out of the way to get that $100 bill. It's not like dealers don't recognize value, right?
That's true.
They're going to bend down and pick up the $100, even if it's in a pile of mud. So if they're not reacting to your product, they see no value. You got to blame yourself. Your value doesn't even represent 100. Your product doesn't even represent the value of $100. That's the way I look at it.
You're so right. And we kind of talked about it a little earlier too. It's like how to bring value. Like I tell you, I had one golden rule when it comes to vendors, and I didn't care what vendor it was. I really didn't. All right. The second that they said that all it takes is to sell one more car and I will make up the expense of whatever widget or product they were selling, I immediately just disconnected. I'm sure you've heard this one a billion times, right?
Here's the marketing strategy for 90% of the vendors. Hey, listen, I've got a game changer, cloud-based, disruptive, transformative technology that's a no-brainer.
Ain't that the truth? And you only have to sell one more car to cover the expense of it. I mean, come on, who wouldn't do that? Now that's one. Now the other ones that I think that really kind of drive me nuts from the vendor side is the vendors that are willing to come into a dealership and tell me as a dealer, all right, how I'm not running my business right. And they know how to run my business better than I do. Have you seen this before? Have you heard of this?
Yeah, it's a symptom of, you've got to, and listen, I was not in the automotive industry, but when I was early in my sales career, I got trained, I closed a couple deals. I thought I knew what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So as a sales guy, you're competitive, you get aggressive, you start really, believing, what's going on. So you start telling your customers what you think they should be doing. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of just inexperienced sales reps.
It really is. Actually, that's a good way to look at it. It is a symptom of just inexpensive rep. Now, let's talk about like the best approach then, because we've done a good job kind of talking about the worst approaches we've ever seen. All right, what do you think the best approach is to approach a dealer with a product or service that you're trying to sell?
Listen, the one guy, when I got into automotive, the one guy I started studying was Dale Pollock at V Auto. Like, this is way before he sold his company. and if you look at his blog post, Velocity, you look at what his company did, he created the category and he educated the dealers first. He taught them the value of having a velocity mindset. Like he stuck his flag in the ground and says, hey, listen, this is what I believe in. This is what we're going to do. And this is what I'm going with. So the dealers believed it. His team believed it. And he sold his company to Cox for, I don't know, 11 figures or something.
Oh yeah. He definitely is someone who knows how to approach a dealer, but I'm look, I get it because I've been on the dealer side. Of course, now
you can't sell the dealers. You got to educate them, right?
You got to educate them.
Here's the thing: they've been selling cars for 30 years, 100 years, right? Whatever, right? Like you're not going to help them sell more cars faster. Like I already sell enough cars. Selling cars isn't my problem. The thing is, they've got problems and they know they have problems, but they're cool dealing with their problems because it isn't life or death. So you've got to prove to the dealer you understand their business and you can solve a problem, because everyone's selling vaporware. Like, yeah, I can help you sell more cars faster. I just had a record year last year. I couldn't sell any more cars if I wanted to. My factory won't give me any more inventory.
That's true.
That message isn't going to work.
So what message would you say does work? Look, it's tough.
You got to drill down.
The dealers.
You've got to drill down and show them that you understand that, they say the riches are in the niches or whatever. Listen, I don't like that cliche, but if you can show the dealer, first of all, you got to challenge them. You can't placate them and say, hey, buddy, listen, I could really help you out and hope like we're going to be friends and he's going to give you money.
Yes.
They don't need more friends. All right.
That's actually a really good point. That's very true. Look, it's not necessarily we're looking for friends. We're looking for business value here, right?
So you've got to communicate to them that you understand their business and you can deliver value. And if you're a green pea rep and you work for a vendor and you've never sold cars, well, okay. How are you going to understand his business? So I never sold cars. I worked 2 days at a dealership, got fired, and then I never went back to it. That's a different story. If you don't understand if you're talking to a dealer principal and he can smell it through the phone if you don't know what you're talking about. So what did I do? I reached out to industry experts. When I first got into sales, selling to car dealers, I reached out to Dale Pollard. I reached out to Brian Pash. I reached out to people to say, hey man, I just got into this industry. I don't know what I should do. What do I do? And they said, read as much as you can and listen to your customers. And I said, okay, cool. So I started going online. I went and read like SEC, I read reports, like the SEC transcripts from public dealer groups when their CEOs would talk. And I'm taking notes, Yep. And I'm talking to my dealers and and I tell them straight up, listen, man, I've never been in the car business. I don't know anything about this. Today's my first month on the job. I don't want to say anything. And I would follow my sword and I wouldn't try to be something I wasn't, right?
For sure. And
I'd ask questions. I'd shut up and listen.
Okay, now there you go. I think that's actually the biggest advice that we can actually give to vendors that are approaching dealers is just to shut up. Just shut up and listen to what the dealer has to say. I mean, I find my biggest success
or your
with
customers, your best customers are going to tell you where they're what they like about your product.
100%. But it's just I find that for me, the best connections I've created with dealers is just listening, being a soundboard that's both professional and not opinionative. I don't have to say something every single time they say something. I got to be honest with you, I'm actually dumbfounded sometimes what dealers are willing to share with me. And I never asked them to do that, but it's just
you think
listen.
about it. They built companies. They have built companies. Like there's companies the dealer feedback has built, and they have no idea like how valuable their feedback is. The best question a sales rep could ask a dealer starts with this: help me understand. Help me understand. because he's going to say something and it's like, wow, help me understand. Why is that important to you, Mr. Dealer? And he could be like a dealer group and he'll say, well, listen, man, I manage 4 stores. I need centralized reporting. I don't want to log in 5 times to, 3 logins and, I can't pull these reports. Wow, that's interesting. Why do you say that? Well, I spend 20 hours a week pulling reports.
Mm-hmm.
Now you take that information and next time you talk to a multi-rooftop group, you say, hey, listen, you don't have to log in. You can pull these reports. We can save you 20 hours. It's so valuable. But you're going to stick with, I can help you sell more cars faster.
Yeah, it just seems the wrong approach. So like, I don't know. I've been playing around a lot with kind of different approaches. And like right now, our approach is that we set up a discovery call first so that we can learn a little bit about each other before we even talk about our products or services. And I find that allows me to kind of, filter through the dealers that actually do want to connect and create a partner versus ones that are just looking to, check out the proverbial box that they hired some company to handle their marketing, right? It's like if they're willing to get on and so that I can learn a little bit about them and their operations, they can learn a little bit about me, then it's feel like, okay, cool. We can actually talk about the product from a place of understanding each other versus it just coming down to a sales pitch. You think I'm not 100% sure. Do you think that's the right way to do it though?
No, I don't think it's the right way to do it.
All right, let's play it out. Lay it on me.
I think dealers are shark smart. All right. And what I mean by, I used to lifeguard in Hawaii. And anytime you go in the water in Hawaii, I promise you there is a shark in that water within half a mile.
Yep.
But they won't bother you. These sharks won't bother you. They don't attack people. In fact, they ignore you. Why? Because they don't think there's anything of value there. There's nothing to eat. So that you're safe in the water. But as soon as one shark starts eating, you don't want to be in that water. It'll create a feeding frenzy and they're all going to come. So dealers are apex predators. Like these are the top of the food chain we're talking about, right? Sure. So if you want to attract a dealer to whatever you're selling, you're not going to do it with artificial bait and cliches and all this other stuff. You got to be shark smart.
Okay, I'm listening. Let's go. Keep going. Smart shark.
So what do dealers like? Listen, dealers want to know what their competitors are doing. Dealers want to know that you can deliver on what you say, right? It's got to be a little deeper than, we're going to help you sell more cars faster, right? So going back to Dale Pollak, if you look at Dale Pollak and you analyze his blogs, he'll start off and, it's very deliberate. He starts off with, yesterday I talked to a dealer principal in Texas that owned 3 rooftops. What did he do right there? He identified his target market. He's speaking to someone. When that content goes out, if I own 3 stores, I'd be like, hey, that's me. Do I have your attention? This dealer principal said he was dealing with this problem, and he outlines a very specific business case. We're dealing with this. That dealer principal, the other guy says, wow, that's me. I'm dealing with this too. So he's shaking his head up and down, saying, yes, that's me. Yes, that's my problem. Yes, it sounds like this guy knows what he's talking about. That's a lot different than I can help you sell more cars faster. But to get to that level, you got to understand the dealer's problems. You can't have a marketing person sitting in a room that's never talked to dealers.
100%. You have to earn the right to actually be able to have the conversation. So that means that regardless if the dealer ends up doing business with you or not, they got value from the 15 or 30-minute conversation that you had. So no, I think that's a great point. I think for vendors out there, it's like, you know what, even if I don't work with you,
that's the goal,
right? That's right. Even if I don't work, because I actually think about this, like there was a vendor that reached out to me one time and did exactly this. Really brought me some very cool stats that I just simply didn't know about, some marketing opportunities and stuff but like at the end of the day, what he was pitching was something that we were already executing. So I didn't necessarily really need his services, but he left me with something that I actually ended up handing it off to my team, and then my team actually saw some value. And the kicker was I probably ended up referring 2 or 3 dealerships to him, even though I never even ended up doing business with him. So
think about that,
right? I mean, yeah. And
think about that.
Yeah. That says a lot.
And most people, most vendors think once they close the dealer, the deal's done and now we got a customer. No, that's not the case, guys.
No, that's totally true.
This guy's still about, he's so skeptical. Like your sales guy, he sold it, right? But now the dealer's going to evaluate it.
Yep.
And during this evaluation process, they're super skeptical. Like they're guarded. They've been burned so many times. So any little thing that goes wrong is exaggerated in the dealer's mind. Okay. So they're actually looking for a reason to cancel early. I don't care if you give them a 30-day trial, you know, you're going month to month, or you put them in a contract, right? The dealers in that, I call it a 90-day window, because initially when he activates, okay, he's a customer, but he's not a client. And then even if he is a client, is he going to refer business for you?
Yeah, that's a great.
That's
point.
a different level.
100%.
So then I was working with a dealer one time, or a vendor one time. We were looking at his accounts and I was like, man, you've got this store, and this store. They're part of the Asbury group, but how come you only have 3 stores? And they're looking at me like, what? And I was like, dude, you didn't understand these are Asbury stores? So then I talked to their customer service people and I was like, hold on, help me understand this. You've got an Asbury account paying a premium. You got Billy Bob Dirt Lot over here calling support 20 times, right? Beating you up on price, paying his bills late, always having a new internet manager, and he's monopolizing your service time. Meanwhile, Asbury isn't going to call you. They're going to cancel and find someone else.
100%.
Asbury's got 250 stores, and you're servicing the Billy Bob Dirt Lot because your customer support people don't understand that the courtesy is part of an Asbury group, and they just didn't know the dynamics of the automotive ecosystem, right?
No, that's true. That's
so
that's actually
they're
really
supporting a
good point
squeaky wheel, where the good wheels that would grow their business are getting ignored.
You know, I will have to say that was actually.
Who do you blame?
You know, when I was a dealer, that was one of the things that was another big pet peeve for me, is that, you know, I would have vendors call on me and not know anything about me, like nothing. You know, didn't take, you know, the 5 or 7 minutes that it takes to look me up on LinkedIn or have
sad, isn't it?
Right? Like they just like, I'm like, so they'll say stuff or they'll bring stuff up and I'm like, do you know anything about me as an individual? And so let's talk a little bit about that.
No, but my product's so good. My product's so good. I don't even need to. You need it.
I know, but like, let's give some advice to some of the vendors out there that are watching and listening right now. Like, you know, how much time would you normally recommend to be spent on really kind of learning or researching, you know, your potential client?
Listen, man, right up front, you want to make a dream. You don't want to work with every dealer in America. You want to work with the best dealers. So you want to make a list of the dealers you want to target. A lot of vendors are like any port in a storm, and they'll take any deal that they can get. You know, this is revenue. We need to do it. No, that's not. It's not revenue. It's going to cannibalize your business. You want to charge a premium, and the dealers will pay a premium if you give them the service. If you've got to cut costs, then you're not giving them the service, right? So I wouldn't even focus on like what dealers I would work on. Here's what I do know. When you do the service right, you get referrals. You get the sister stores. Yep. You get people 100%. That leave one dealership. Like if I'm an internet manager or sales manager at this store and I go to another store, when you're doing the service right, when that guy starts a new job, he calls you up and says, hey, Andrew, I'm at a new store. I'm going to put you in. Then you know you're doing it right.
That's a very
Until then, you're not doing it right. Scoreboard will tell you that. Oh, the dealers don't understand. They don't get it. They're old school. No, it's not.
No, they do most definitely get it. Now, I want to transition our conversation just a little over to something that's been bugging me a lot lately, especially in the last 12 to 24 months, as some of these new, let's say, data policies on some of these vendors that are coming out. Look, dealers are not reading the 37-page data policy that a lot of these vendors have. And I just don't think dealers necessarily understand they're sitting on a gold mine of data. And there are some vendors out there that are definitely taking advantage of this. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Can I take the fifth on this one?
No, you got to, come on, give it to me.
Yeah, here's the deal. The dealers are sitting on a gold mine, right? And they're getting exploited left and right. Like, I mean, listen, you've been in this city, this town, this area for 30 years, and you've got a CRM or a DMS filled with data, and you're going to give that data you're going to let someone else access that data. I don't know, man. I mean, that's saying your data isn't that valuable. So having, going back to what we were talking about before, having certain certifications and showing that these vendors are getting audited, or at least they're paying for a certified interface, whether it's CDK, Reynolds, whoever, or, in other industries like banking, there's certifications that the vendors have to spend real money on to get access to their customers' data. Like SOC 2 is a big deal in finance industry, right? And there's a lot of people doing F&I stuff, and a lot of people that are getting consumer information that don't have, they got a dude who wrote some code who is a friend of a brother, and they've got 100 dealers on their platform. So yeah, it's a huge deal. Like I wouldn't access I wouldn't even, if I became a dealer today, I probably wouldn't give my data even to third-party marketplaces. Like that's how valuable I think even that is.
No, I think those third-party marketplaces, those are the ones I actually really get scared about, like super fast. I mean, if you actually sit down and read them, you'll see that they have access to all of your customers. They have access to the behavior of those customers on your websites. I mean, even some website vendors, I'd be pretty scared. Like we have a big third-party vendor up here, and I won't say the name, but everybody knows who I'm talking about, who just launched this new marketing product. And look, the reality is that they are taking the traffic that is generated through these dealers' inventory on their third-party site and then reselling, right, those remarketed cookies to other dealers. So I'm a dealer. I put my inventory on this third-party site, and people come to the third-party site to look at my inventory and look at the pictures and watch the videos, and then this third-party vendor is reselling that traffic, back to another dealer. I mean,
that's what they did, man.
It's seriously disgusting. So, like, how does a dealer protect themselves from that kind of crap?
Well, I mean, the first thing I tell them is, listen, the denial of complexity is a form of deception. So what I mean by that, listen, when a vendor tells me, yeah, we've got that covered, don't worry about it, it's no big deal, they're trying to say it's not a complicated issue. But it really is a complicated issue. And to deny how complicated it is meaning someone's getting deceived.
Oh, for sure. 100%. Like, it is.
But
it's
when they take the step and say, wow, that's a great question, I'm glad you asked that, here's what we're going to do, and they outline how they're going to manage that, that's a different answer.
No, I agree. Look, dealers got to be educated on their data. I really do, because I don't think they understand the power of all the different data points that are being collected from the service department, from the parts department, from the sales department. And, still as an industry, I don't think we do a good enough job of utilizing our data in the first place. But man, dealers really need to protect that, just putting that stuff out there and not reading these, like I just had a dealer, actually have a lawyer.
Hey, Wade, I'm going to have to wrap this up. I had an hour for you.
Oh, do you? Okay. You know what? Let's do this. I know we're towards the tail end of our time. So for everyone out there that's watching, listening, I want to take this moment to really thank you for jumping on and having this conversation. This has been a blast.
Glad to be here.
And I hope you have yourself an amazing day, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob Podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to sign up to Be a Mobster at strategymob.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.